Out of all hunters in the world of solo leveling, Sung Jinwoo is by far the strongest one. His insane power and abilities leave destruction wherever he goes, and even the strongest S-class hunters freeze in terror when facing him. But it wasn't always like that. So in this video, we'll be explaining all of Sung Jinwoo's forms in solo leveling and his unstoppable transformation from the weakest to the strongest. For example, at the start of the show, Sung Jinwoo is the weakest hunter of the E rank, which is the weakest rank there is. Imagine having the worst possible stats in the video game. Yeah, that's him. However, despite being the weakest, he somehow managed to survive being a hunter for 4 years, until that fateful day when everything changed. You see, one day, Jinwoo and his team entered what seemed like a normal D-rank dungeon. However, they soon discovered a second hidden dungeon inside. This secret dungeon turned out to be way more dangerous than they thought, and Jinwoo quickly lost his leg fighting the monsters inside. Considering he was already injured, he decided to stay back and buy time for the rest of his team to escape. Right as he is about to die to the monsters, he gets a message saying that he has completed some kind of secret quest, and that he can choose to become a player. Being a player means that he will start at level 1 and then slowly level up and grow stronger from completing quests and killing monsters. Having nothing to lose, Sung Jinwoo accepts. Sometime later, he wakes up in a hospital with all of his injuries mysteriously healed. Since he is now level 1, his mana points are still the same as they were before he became a player, which is 10. To put it into perspective, other E rank hunters have at the very least 70 mana points, which proves just how far behind Sung Jinwoo really was. But this was quickly about to change, as from this point on, his power will skyrocket, and he'll unlock many different forms, eventually reaching his final monster form in the end, the player. In order to start leveling up, he first has to do his daily quest, which is pretty much Saitama's training routine: 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, 100 squats, and a 10-kilometer run. Jinwoo brushes off the daily quest since he is still hospitalized and can't be bothered to do any exercises, so he just goes to sleep. However, when the clock strikes midnight, he gets transported to a penalty dungeon for not doing his quest in time. Here he has to survive against giant centipedes for 4 hours, which is a lot harder than the training routine. This taught him a lesson, and he started training every day after that. In chapter 12, Sung Jinwoo is instructed to do his first solo raid, where he successfully defeats a few giant wolves and levels up to level 2. After defeating a bunch more wolves, his level eventually reaches 5, increasing his mana points to 90. Due to the number of wolves he has slain, Sung Jinwoo gets his first job title as the Wolf Slayer, and officially becomes an average E rank hunter. B rank hunter. Moving on to chapter 17, Sung Jinwoo finally clears the dungeon by defeating the dungeon's boss, a giant snake called Blue Venom Fanged Kasaka. Upon exiting the dungeon, he hears that a group of hunters are struggling to beat a dungeon boss nearby, so he goes to help them. From a safe distance, he throws his broken blade at the boss's head and defeats it in one blow. With this, his level reaches 18, and it's evident that he is now much stronger than any E or D rank in the world. After defeating the boss, Jinwoo continues to train at home until he gets a call to join a C rank raid. But little did he know he was going on a raid with a bunch of lizards who planned on scamming and leaving him to die so they could take all the loot for themselves. Eventually, they locked Jinwoo in the boss room alone, but when they came back, they were surprised to see the boss dead. Sung Jinwoo killed it all by himself. Defeating the boss increased his level to 21, and immediately after, he effortlessly defeated all of the hunters who trapped him. Although Jinwoo is already many times stronger than he was at the start, this is all just the beginning, and there are still 10 insane forms left to cover, and you'll be surprised by how strong he actually becomes. A rank hunter. After accidentally completing a secret quest, Jinwoo obtains a key for an S rank dungeon and pretty much says, screw it, let's see how it goes. He enters the Demon Castle dungeon where he is immediately confronted by Hell's gatekeeper, Cerberus. Jinwoo struggles at first, but manages to defeat the beast thanks to the status recovery item he had on him. This victory boosted his level all the way to 25, but it also helped him realize that he was still not strong enough to complete this dungeon. So he made a promise to himself to return to it once he got strong enough. Fast forward to chapter 34, Sung Jinwoo meets with Jin Chul from the Hunter Association, and he instantly understands the difference in their power, commenting on how he is currently much weaker than Jin. And that's fair, since Jin is a top tier A rank. Realizing he is still not strong enough, Jinwoo starts going to more and more raids, and by chapter 36, he reaches level 40. Upon reaching this milestone, he gets an important notification that he can now go on a quest to acquire a job. This piques his interest, and he accepts the quest, going into an instant dungeon. There, he easily defeats the undead knights and magicians and obtains some nice loot. However, the problem was that after he defeated the dungeon boss, for some reason, his quest was not complete. This is when an infinite amount of undead soldiers start attacking him, with more coming each time he kills some. Jinwoo was getting overwhelmed, but he was thankfully saved by getting sent to the penalty dungeon since he didn't do his daily training that day. This time, the penalty dungeon was a piece of cake for him, and he killed all of the giant centipedes inside it, which gave him 4 hours to recover. Upon returning to the dungeon and witnessing that there are even more undead soldiers now, Jinwoo notices that the magicians in the back seem to be the ones who are summoning all the soldiers, so he rushes to kill them first. After getting rid of the last magician, he notices that the quest has been completed and is excited about what job he will get. Maybe a warrior, assassin, or maybe even a tank. Well, he gets Necromancer, which greatly disappoints him. But just as he is about to refuse this job, the system tells him that the Necromancer is a hidden class, which makes him reconsider. After accepting to become a Necromancer, the system evaluates his stats and upgrades his class to Shadow Monarch, which unlocks Shadow Extraction, a powerful skill that lets him bring back the dead and use them as his own soldiers. He immediately uses this skill on the undead soldiers he fought just now, but then realizes that he can do much more with it. This is when he turned the defeated dungeon boss, 𝐿 into his first named soldier. By the time Jinwoo leaves this dungeon, he is level 51 with a few dozen shadow soldiers on his side. Having a shadow army of his own significantly boosted Jinwoo's strength, but this was only just the beginning, and his army would soon get much, much stronger. Top tier A rank. There is no doubt that Sung Jinwoo is already an A rank, but in the context of the Shadow Monarch, he is still at the beginning. Anyway, soon after this, Jinwoo goes with his sister to an average C rank dungeon in order to show her that being a hunter is a very dangerous job and that she shouldn't pursue it. However, things take a turn when the gate to the dungeon turns out to be a red gate. Red gates seal off their entrance once a group enters, so in order to leave, the group has to fight through the red gate's crazy climate and defeat the dungeon's boss, and only then will the gate open again. While everyone else is scared of getting killed by the ferocious ice bears, Jinwoo goes on the offensive and hunts the bears instead. He summons his shadow soldiers to test their strength and is surprised by how powerful they are, with 𝐿 being even stronger than himself. This fight boosted his level to 52 and also let him get more shadow soldiers from the defeated ice bears, expanding his army. After some time, Jinwoo engages in a battle against the dungeon's boss, but realizes that even with all of his shadow soldiers, it's not going to be an easy battle. In order to strengthen his army further, Jinwoo kills one of the A rank hunters nearby. The guy tried to kill Jinwoo before, so I guess it's fine, and turns him into a shadow soldier named Iron. With Iron's help, Jinwoo eventually manages to defeat the dungeon boss. Upon exiting the dungeon, he is greeted by the S rank hunter Baek-Yoonho, who threatens Jinwoo to answer his questions. However, Jinwoo intimidates him, and the hunter steps away, thinking to himself how Jinwoo is very close to his level. This is the first time in the story we get confirmation that Jinwoo is really close to being an S-class hunter, despite officially still being rated as the weakest E-class. You may be thinking that Jinwoo can't really get that much stronger than he currently is, but that's completely wrong, as there are still 8 forms left to cover, and he will soon become an absolute monster. S rank. After the Red Gate incident, Jinwoo went back to grinding dungeons, and by chapter 56, he was already level 61 with over 1,600 mana points. Oh, and you remember when Jinwoo went to that S-rank dungeon where he barely defeated the gatekeeper of the castle? Well, now that he is stronger than ever, he decides to head back there and attempt to finish the entire dungeon. He clears the first 50 floors easily, and even defeats the ruler of the lower floors, the avaricious Vulcan. There, he also finds a recipe for the holy water of life. At this point, we don't know how much he has leveled since entering the castle, but it's evident that he is much stronger than he was when he left the Red Gate. Even he himself is already aware that he has reached strength levels comparable to an S rank. Jinwoo decides not to go further into the dungeon right now, and instead considers going to official re-evaluation to see what his rank truly is. Sadly, when he touches the mana meter, which was supposed to calculate his strength, it breaks due to his immense mana capacity. So his re-evaluation is scheduled to take place in 3 days with a stronger mana meter. But still, news spread and everyone knows that Sung Jinwoo is about to become Korea's 10th S rank. However, before he officially becomes an S rank, he goes into an A rank gate to see for himself what they're like and also see how other hunters deal with these high-level dungeons. But as usual, everything instantly goes wrong. It seems like the dungeon was incorrectly measured, and it's actually very close to being an S rank dungeon, meaning the hunters present were quickly overpowered by the first few orcs that attacked them. Everyone was taken to the throne room where they met the orcs leader and saw the full size of his army. Meanwhile, A rank Wu Qinzhuo and S rank 𝐲𝐸 went into the dungeon to help the others after finding out that it's actually much more dangerous than it was supposed to be. But when they arrived, they could just stand and watch as Jinwoo summoned over 100 shadows to his side and cleared the whole dungeon completely alone. This also made 𝐲 fall for him, by the way. Anyway, after the fight was over, Jinwoo turned many orcs into his new shadows and even made the boss into another elite shadow named Tusk. So if we combine all of his shadow soldiers right now, he has 123 regular shadows and 4 elite shadows. Top tier S rank. A day passes and the time for Jinwoo to get officially registered as an S rank hunter is finally here. He is asked to show off what he can do, and while 3 S rank hunters are observing, he summons around 20 of his shadow soldiers and also shows off his incredible speed, which terrifies Baek. When they met after the Red Gate incident, he was sure that Jinwoo was much weaker than him, but now he felt like he was miles behind Jinwoo. He thinks to himself that it's almost as if Jinwoo can keep leveling up or something. What a silly theory. Having attained his S rank, Jinwoo returns to the Demon Castle to get the final ingredient for the Holy Water of Life, which is being guarded by a boss 25 floors above him. Clearing these floors gave him a ton of XP, and by the time he reached floor 100, his level was already 93. On the final floor, Jinwoo has to fight against Demon King 𝗵𝗏. Despite how strong Jinwoo is, 𝗵𝗏 is really tough and almost kills the hunter. However, after channeling all of his strength into one final attack, he manages to finally overpower and defeat the Demon King. After this win, Jinwoo unlocks a new ability, Shadow Exchange, which lets him swap places with one of his shadows no matter where it is, and also turns the Demon King's dragon into another elite soldier. Now that he has everything to craft the Holy Water of Life, he rides his new dragon straight to the hospital where his mother is and gives her the potion. To his surprise, the potion actually works, and his mother wakes up from her 4-year-long sleep, which is a huge load off his chest. Being an official S rank is cool, but this is not where Jinwoo's growth stops, as there are still 6 forms even stronger than this one. Strongest S rank in Korea. At this point, Sung Jinwoo is the strongest S rank hunter in Korea and one of the strongest in the whole world. We can confirm this by looking at what happened when he fought Japan's strongest S rank hunter, 𝐿𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏. Jinwoo only dodged and blocked Goto's attacks, and just as he was about to punch him for the first time, other hunters jumped in to stop the spar. Jinwoo was congratulated for being able to keep up with Japan's greatest, while Goto walked away looking, well, not the best. He knew that if that punch hit him, he would be dead. Anyways, almost every S rank Korean hunter is in Japan at this point to help with the incident of evolving ants on Jeju Island. What's weird is that Jinwoo does not want to participate in the raid because he feels like 16 S rank hunters are more than enough to deal with it. However, just in case, he hides a few shadows with the hunters so he can teleport if something bad happens. And as usual, something bad does happen, because soon after the raid began, many hunters quickly got killed with even Goto dying. Jinwoo realizes that he now has to help his Korean comrades, and he quickly teleports to the battlefield. Since this whole raid was being broadcast worldwide, it meant that the entire world was about to recognize Jinwoo as one of the strongest hunters in the world. He immediately showcased his healing skills by healing his S-rank comrades except for 𝐲, whose injuries were a lot more serious and needed treatment from a real healer. This is when the Ant King arrives, and the two get into an epic one-on-one battle, with Jinwoo overwhelming the Ant King in every field. Killing the Ant King levels Jinwoo to level 99, with his mana points nearing 10,000, but he still doesn't know what to do about 𝐲's injuries. If he wants to save her, he has only one option, and that's to revive one of the S-rank healers that died during the raid, Min, as a shadow soldier, and have him heal 𝐲. He does exactly that, but after Min heals her, Jinwoo gets rid of him, because it just doesn't feel right to keep him as a shadow soldier. Everyone goes home to recover while Jinwoo stays behind to get rid of the remaining ants, so this doesn't happen again. And so, in chapter 105, while finishing off the ants, he finally levels up to level 100, National Level Hunter. Of course, before leaving the island, he makes sure to turn the Ant King into a shadow, and it becomes a general rank shadow named Beru. Anyway, now that Sung Jinwoo has reached level 100, he obtains another key, this time for the double dungeon, the one where he got his abilities at the start of the story. But before entering the double dungeon, he had a few very important things to do, like saving his sister's school from an orc invasion, and flirting with Cha, of course. Also, there's a rule in Korea that only a group of 10 or more can enter the gates, which kinda bothers Jinwoo as he wants to do solo raids. This is why Woo Jin-chul was sent to observe Jinwoo's first official solo raid to see if he is truly capable of clearing an A-rank dungeon by himself, even though we already know the answer. The raid was over quickly, and Woo could only describe what he saw inside as a massacre. So, needless to say, Jinwoo was permitted to go on solo hunts from now on. With all that out of the way, the time has come for Jinwoo to go against the system itself. At level 103, he enters the double lair dungeon once again. Inside, he meets the architect of the system, who wishes to test Jinwoo by putting him in an arena against the same giant statues he fought at the start of the series, to make it interesting. He also took away all powers Jinwoo earned by being a player, like his summons, the shop, status recoveries, and similar. So Jinwoo could only use his own strength to win this fight. Defeating the smaller statues was no big deal, but the architect turned out to be even stronger than the unbeatable Jinwoo. However, against all odds, he exceeds the architect's expectations and actually defeats him, which lets Jinwoo watch the memories of the previous Shadow Monarch. His mind is getting the answers to everything that has happened while his body is asleep, waiting for the previous Shadow Monarch to take control of his body. However, that doesn't happen, and Ashborn, the previous Shadow Monarch, decides to instead transfer all of his powers to Jinwoo, making him his heir. Jinwoo soon wakes up and pins the architect to the ground. He also gets the previous Shadow Monarch's heart, which makes him the single most powerful human ever, like he wasn't already. His mana points increase from just under 10,000 to over 100,000. But the most epic moment in this arc has to be when Jinwoo denies the architect access to his own system before killing him. Okay, Jinwoo has pretty much completed the entire game at this point, but this is still nowhere close to his actual potential, which he will achieve very soon. The administrator of the system. After killing the architect, Sung Jinwoo becomes the new administrator of the system. And now that everything is over, he falls unconscious due to fatigue and sleeps for 3 whole days. While he's asleep, a new S-rank dungeon opens in Japan. He gets there as soon as possible to fix things up and kills the huge giant that was rampaging in the streets of Japan before entering the gate. Inside, he meets with the monarch of the beginning Legia, also known as the King of Giants. He explains that Jinwoo may be a monarch now, but soon other monarchs and rulers will come to kill him, so Legia proposes that the two of them team up. Jinwoo doesn't seem that interested in this, and instead asks Legia to become one of his shadow soldiers, which is just absurd. However, that's not even possible since monarchs' bodies are different, so Jinwoo just kills him, gaining an abundance of XP and leveling up to level 122. Monarch level. Jinwoo decides to take a break from all these monarchs and rulers stuff and heads to America to represent Korea at the International Guild Conference, where the strongest hunters in the world will meet. Now, Jinwoo is clearly stronger than everyone there, but there are still some people who arrogantly believe that they are stronger. One of these people is Thomas Andre, the current strongest hunter in the world, who gets into an argument with Jinwoo. Jinwoo is pretty pissed for a few reasons, so he pretty much breaks every bone in Thomas's body and forces him to surrender. After news broke out of Thomas's defeat, Jinwoo was officially recognized by everyone to be the strongest hunter in the world. With everyone being aware of his true power, other top-tier hunters start to look up to Jinwoo, with even Thomas giving him Kamisha's Wrath, a pair of incredibly powerful daggers, much stronger than Jinwoo's previous ones. Before we cover Jinwoo's strongest form in the entire show, let's first quickly cover his transformation into the true Shadow Monarch. Soon, another massive gate opens up in Korea, and 3 monarchs appear out of the gate: the Beast Monarch, the Frost Monarch, and the Plague Monarch, with their goal, of course, being to kill Jinwoo. When they started wreaking havoc around the city, Jinwoo was actually far away on a date with Cha, so other hunters had to try and hold back the monarchs, but were not very successful at it. As things start to feel hopeless for the hunters, Jinwoo is forced to abandon his date and save the day. It's funny that instead of running as far as possible, people realize that the smartest option is to just stay close to Jinwoo because he's their only hope. Jinwoo with his army fights the 3 monarchs all at once and manages to kill the monarch of Plague. Just as he is about to defeat another one, he was stabbed in the heart by the Beast Monarch. His black heart activates and he starts transforming into a true Shadow Monarch. But this takes time, so his father, who was thought to be dead for over 10 years, suddenly jumps in to defend Jinwoo while he transforms. the strongest monarch of all time. Jinwoo is revived as the new Shadow Monarch, and as that happens, the system is automatically deleted since its purpose was fulfilled. The Beast Monarch teleports far away to escape, but Jinwoo instantly catches up to him and kills him in just 4 attacks. Then he comes back to finish off the Frost Monarch and have a heartwarming reunion with his father. Also, when he became a full-fledged Shadow Monarch, his shadows became much stronger as well. But if that wasn't enough, the original Shadow Army was also added to his numbers. At this point, there's only one final enemy Jinwoo has to face, the Monarch of Destruction, also known as the King of Dragons. Their fight is an epic one, and Jinwoo uses the dragon's fearsome roar, which renders most of the Dragon King's troops useless. As they continue to fight, Jinwoo recalls a badass skill, armor creation, which creates super strong armor for him while also making him look like the Shadow Monarch. The fight keeps going until Jinwoo gets help from the rulers. They finish off the King of Dragons and thank him for ending the war by defeating the monarchs. However, when they ask if he wants any reward, Jinwoo asks them to send him back in time. He asks for this because he wants to defeat all monarchs and monsters by himself this time, so none of his loved ones have to die. The rulers grant him this wish, and he spends the next 27 years killing all monarchs again, eventually succeeding. In the process, he rids the whole world of dungeons, magical powers, and beasts, and goes on to live a normal life as the strongest monarch of all time.